Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording at 4 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday, the 24th of October. My name's Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Barry, how we doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. Got a little bit of a cold, but other than that, good.
Well, it's no fun having a cold in a tropical climate, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
So
I'll be all
let's,
right. Mhm.
let's, the big question for today, when we were talking before the show, Barry, you and I were discussing, is today's move, the liftoff move, kicking off the much anticipated melt up, or is it going to be potentially a gap and crap like we've seen from the S&P in previous occasions? I think that, to me, that's the big question on most people's minds.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take
So
a look at
I,
that. We'll
yeah, I
take a
see
look at
the
that for
gap in
sure.
the S&P. So,
And what other thing?
uh,
What are you covering today? I know you're
uh,
covering some
yeah,
commodities, right?
yeah. Today we'll look at corn and beans. They woke up this week, and
hmm
we'll go back and see how the coffee short is working out and discuss
hmm
the setups there as well.
And it's still fresh. That whole coffee,
Yes,
yeah, setup.
and it looks good. It
Yeah.
really looks good. So we'll talk about that
Mhm.
opportunities there.
All right, so let's start off with the cash. And last week we only had a couple of numbers to work with. We had 67.27 and 66.38, and the two numbers we were working with. So we talked about the spikes last week. We were talking about taking the counter trend and see what happens. And obviously, after first drop, counter trend should move on, right? And we talked about this inside bar and said, hey, and the idea of inside bar is always about, going with the direction of the break. And I remember saying, if we take out the Friday low, it's not going to be good. And, we could definitely go and test these and if not lower. So what we did was we did a gap and we went to the other side. So obviously, if we get the opposite, we take out the high of the inside day, you really have to be focused on that. So when basically using the S&P cash chart, we were basically stuck at the 67.27, 67.30 level. And you can see 4 days in a row, we were just tapping it, coming back, backing and filling. And it reminded me of something that we talk about, like what happened here back in July, when we tap key level and then we just hang around without really dropping, that's kind of bullish. You have to always be careful when you're handling that. It's not a place where you, even though we had like 90 by 90 here, 180 by 90, you want to be always be careful, wait for clearance or full clarity before moving it. Just really at these levels mainly. So here you can see 27, 67, 27, 67, 30 area was hit all week and it wasn't letting up. The flush was on Wednesday. And we'll look at that when we look at the 30-minute chart, which really mapped everything out pretty well. And after 2 days, well, obviously today's price action was well above 67.27. Now all of this is support. So the question, as for is this the takeoff? It definitely could be. It'd be nice if we get a retest and then go like we normally do. And you can go back and study your old charts and you can see how these retests come, and they do. If we're going to really go higher, we'll definitely get a retest. I mean, I'm catching an eye. My eye's catching this. You can see how we, made a high May 18th. After we broke out above it, came back to retest on June 23rd, right? So you can see we draw a line. You can see we had two test bars, and after that we took off. So in that the same period, I guess it'd be nice to see it come back and retest it, but we'll see how it happens. But basically, above 67.27 is very strong. Number of reasons for that. We had some key timing. We were 180 days coming into this high. We had what 144 today, matter of fact, right? 144 bars.
Yep, today's 144.
And boy, 140 gapping up into 144 is something else. So we're gonna have to watch this a little bit carefully, but the breathing room we have a little bit now because 67, let's say 27.30 area is support. And, earlier it was the 68.38, which we held well above it all this week. And week before that, we were straddling it. Remember, we were talking about, well, it's straddling. We need to get a direction. And if we can settle above, it'll be great. If we settle below, well, it'll be the other way. And so what we did this week was settle above and really sort of claw at the 67.30 number. And finally, Friday, we broke out. And all of this is kind of mapped out on the 30-minute chart. We'll look at that after we're done with the indices. So anyway, so that's that. Remember, these squares are coming from different places. So here's the continuation chart for the ES. So 67.53. We hung around here. We straddled it this week. Last week we were well below it. This week we kind of straddled it. We took out the Thursday's bar, which was an inside bar. We took out the high and sort of cruised into new high. So long as we're above 67.53, let's just say it's 67.50. We have the same sort of level of support below us now. And so that's no joke, right? So once we have that in place, it's very strong. So unless something completely, out of the left field comes in, this looks like a setup. This looks like we flushed everything out nicely. And the bullish part was the price action this week, first part of the week, just hanging at the level versus hanging well below or, going lower. So that sets us up to about 71.20 to the upside. And that looks good. November 24th, we get another timing level coming off the 22 low. Yeah. So that's coming up, but the rest of October looks pretty good. So I guess I'm for the moon camp. And looking at the Dow, I mean, even the Dow is like, okay, let's do this. We talked about it, 47, 162. Back in September, we tapped it, spent almost a month just, pushing up against that resistance. And the pullbacks basically held above, 46,000. So looking at that, unless we're going to really take these out, it's also very bullish. Now that we broke through it, it'd be great to have it settle above. That'll set up the next leg to 50,000. I'm thinking, why not, right? This is the continuation calendar chart for the futures. We're above 67.60. Again, you can get the same pattern. We're coming off different lows, different charts, but you can see the same 4 days of just hanging right at the line, and then Friday, we clearly moved above it. So now that 67.60, 67.50 becomes support. Resistance wise, I'm thinking 7,000. If we can do all this, might as well just get there and maybe even a little higher and be done with it. Get all the bubble labels out. Here's the NASDAQ. Again, this is a good square chart that we've been using. I had drawn out, if we started losing it here on this counter trend, this would have been a good support level. But you can see after the counter trend high, and we were trading each of these counter trends. After this counter trend high, that reversal after that, we never really got below the line, right? We were either straddling it, above it, straddling. And you can see the Thursday close was strong above the square level, and then Friday. So there we go. Now this has a little bit of, I was thinking about this earlier, it's got a little bit of a three drives pattern to it. And because of all these gaps, I'm sure your indicators are showing some divergence, especially here, I'm sure. So take a look at that. So, how do you deal with that? Well, you have to go with the levels. I think long as we're above 25,140, market should be okay. We're in good shape. And we might test a little lower. Let's say 25,060, still okay. Obviously, having good air like this above the level is very, very strong. And the next level I would have is 26,590. We got good ways to go. Here is the December contract. Now, the reason I look at all these different contracts, continuation, the calendar, and the cash, is because it gives you a really, let's just say, stacking the lenses together, you get kind of a unique view. And while the other ones, if you notice, price was either the chart price was straddling the key level or it was just right under, like the cash was something like this, right? At 67.27. Meanwhile, the futures contract was basically holding above 67.35 and, sort of tiptoeing on top of the line. So that's another clue towards the breakout to the upside. And this inside bar was another clue. Obviously, if we broke to the downside today, that would have been a perfect lower high and get things started to the downside. But we broke to the upside, so I'm guessing we're not quite done. Now we have 69.13, and we have the big one would be about 7,007. The big one would be around 7,100. So I think that's sort of where everything's pointing. And if we can get there, I mean, that might be the ball of worry. I don't know. I know, Ben, you were talking about how everybody's talking about a melt up. And, sometimes everybody's right. So it's
Yeah,
possible that we
for a
get there.
while, right? They can be right.
Hmm. So if that's the case, it doesn't really matter if you're trading this. So long as we're above the 67.35 basis the daily, you're in good shape. Obviously, the 4 days that we put in earlier this week around 67.80, you'll see that number come up on the 30-minute chart when we look at that. So anyway, so it all looks clean. We had a clean break, and so that's that. I think let's go jump to the 30-minute chart really quick. Well, that's not the 30-minute, but that's the last chart I was looking at. Is going from the August. We set up a nice 90 by 90 on October 30th. Ben, what do you think about that? You had some
Looks
numbers
nice.
coming up into that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
28, I think, 29, something like that. So
Hmm.
October 30th, hitting right about 7,000. So 69.63. Good. All right. Here's our 30-minute chart. Let's take it from the 20th. So 67.17 was the key level we were watching. Basically, Sunday night, we got on top of it. By Monday morning during Globex, we retested and reversed, went right up to the other side. The other side is 67.88. We've tapped that for a couple of days. That was resistance. I was posting this stuff daily on X. And if you guys are not following us, you can follow us on X. I post stuff every morning on the S&P, and Ben posts up all day about the commodities and all the trades he's looking at. And if you like our work, it's a great time to mention that. If you like our work, click the like button and subscribe. Maybe hit the alerts because that'll help us grow the channel. Maybe share also. All right, so we were talking about how 67.88 was resistance, started making lower highs and got through 67.70 and it went straight down to this 6,700 level. I had this 66.98 level. That's a good support. We stopped there, came back for a false break, got back on top of 67.17, broke through 52, got on top of 67.88 early this morning. And that was kind of the sign, right? We got on top of it during Globex, came back to retest it. This is the break retest. This is the break retest and moving higher part we talked about on the daily, right? We'd like to see that. So here's a retest, and by the time before the open, we were well above 67.88, just primed, ready to go. And you can see the higher highs and higher lows forming, and then from there we catapulted right up it above 60, well, right up into 68.25. We're on the open, and that was big resistance. This entire red band was resistance. I mean, there was enough juice to move it higher up to the next level. 68.42 was resistance. Also, we pushed up against that for most of the day and came back down to where we had the major support. So 68.25. I guess for next week, long as we can hold above 68.25, the show should go on. We should be moving higher. Obviously, after a big move like this, it would be normal to back and fill a little bit. And if the market's really strong, then the 68.15 level should hold it. That would be an eighth of the square. Worst case, 68.06. Not a bad place. And of course, we have the big level that it already retested, 67.88. So that's what we're dealing with. Anything you want to add there, Ben?
I think you nailed the levels, so it's just watching to see, like we did this past week, it stair step above those levels, see if on any retraces, what does it
Hmm.
hold? Like this week, 67.17 was the rock.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And once we cleared this 6750 block, we were off to the races, right?
That's right. And so next week, with the new price levels we're up there, we have to see how does it act on the pullbacks right now, and all day 68.25 has been holding. So
All right. So that's that. That's the 30 minute. Let's take a look at the weekly. So the weekly continuation chart, we had the 65.30 on the board as support. We banged around there for about a month, got on top of it, ran up to the 50% of the square right there, came back. We held, even on the crash day, I was talking about look basis of weekly, as long as we're, this 65.30 is support. And I thought worst case will come down into the zone. We had 6,400 here. That was sort of a buffer. It was buffer on the upside, and you can see we were there for a month exactly in that zone. So if this was getting weak, we would have tested lower, and we didn't. We held above, even a bit of air there. Inside bar last week, and we rolled up. So that's the direction, and probably why I'm a little bit bullish. See what happens. 50% of the square here is 68, 68.82. Pay attention to that level for next week. Obviously, this opens up a lot, especially if we get above that, then we can get up into 72.50, which I think is a great level if we can actually continue on. It's a good resistance up here. Indy 315 could act a little bit of a magnet. So we'll see. So the key level, we're well above that. We're actually challenging the 50% square, the 68.82. See what we do there. Here's the cash chart. Again, we have 64.43 as a really big support level. Um, Obviously, on the daily, when we were talking about the dailies, if we got that lower high and it sold off, this would be a great support level to come and test. But the fact, now that we're breaking to the upside, the fact that we had this big gap here is sort of evidence that we can use, on the flip side, right, to the other side. Here, the stall was exactly a quarter of a square, 68.06. So once we float above that, next level really is the 71, 168, 170 up in this. And that's a little, it's way up there, but that's what we're looking at. And this area of support. We'll see how this quarter level plays support next time. Once next week, I guess, get above and get moving. Anything you want to add to this, Ben? Pretty simple, right?
and
Pretty clear
it's
cut.
yeah, it's just know which levels are important and then see how price acts.
Yeah.
If it gets stuck under, it's going to be weak. If it gets on top, it's going to the next level.
Yep, yep. Sounds almost too simple, right?
The more you simplify it, the easier this gets. It's so true. We try to
Hmm.
make it complicated, but it
Keep it
it's
simple.
it's fairly
Yeah.
basic rules to follow.
All right. So the bonds, speaking of basic rules, ran right up to our 19 and a half level pound resistance for 3 days and backed off. I mean, the bonds are doing pretty well, right? We took out the 45, we sat on top of it, started moving higher, tested. This is really the key level to test. We tested it, backed off a little bit. Now, really, like the big deal now is to see if we're going to make if this level right around 117 and a half or so is going to be support. And if so, bonds are going to be strong. If not, probably more consolidation in here. And take a look at the weekly. So we finally, last week we tapped it. This week we just broke a little bit above 144 degrees down from the 2020 high. It's a kind of a big deal. The line is kind of a big deal. So the main thing now is to see if we can somehow break through it. You can see the angle got a little sharper. We were bouncing along this trend line, and now we're tapping 144 degrees at 118, 119 and a half. So I would say watch that. Basis the weekly. I mean, that's the thing to watch. If we can settle above that, then we have more to go. We actually have quite a bit to go.
That
If we can,
119 and a half is really important.
yeah, yeah, it's really important. It's super important. Short term swings. So watch it along with the daily. You guys have all the numbers. So, all right. Let's take a look at crude. So crude went
Woke up
down.
this week, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So we were talking earlier. We were saying, hey, crude could be gushing pretty soon because we did come down and make a higher low, and we ran pretty good. Pretty good 3 days up, 4 days up, and again we got stalled out at 61, 61. So this is the whole thing we've been watching the entire time. Not much right now. Let it, the crude can do whatever it wants below $61, and we'll wait for it to finish whatever song and dance. But as soon as we settle above 61, I think we have to really start paying attention. And once it clears 64.75 this time around, I think obviously we can go a lot higher. Taking a look at the weekly, it's kind of a big deal because I think this the pattern looks super weak if it wasn't for the square, and even with the square, we're starting to really break. But if you're watching the consolidation, this is what happens along the bottom, right? We'll come up and do a bunch of false starts and then whip around. So we had the flush that we were looking for. We got the rally following that, and then the pullback is the one that didn't really hold above the level, right? We held it for about a month, started to go, then we got under it, started testing from below, not showing a whole lot of strength, so we corrected lower. Now, if we can hold this higher low, it's very positive. What happens next week? But like I said, I'm not going to get all excited until we can settle above 61,
That is a
60.
weekly outside reversal bar.
We do have that. Yes.
And
Yep.
that's,
Yeah.
let's see if we get some follow through next week, because then it makes it a lot more significant.
Yeah. And the thing is, and during the week, long as, a couple of things you can use, as long as we can hold above last week's high, that's very positive, right? That's something you can watch for. Or these lows here, 58.50. Yeah, let's watch for that. And if we can hold above like last week's high and basically in that range, I think crude's gonna it's well, that's the one way to prove its strength, right? So here I'd say 58.50 would be the key level to watch. All right, that's it for crude. Let's move on to gold. Well, you saw red last week. One red bar, was it?
That was the first red bar we'd seen in a long time.
Long time. Yep, yep. Well, and we got the correction. So 43.30, we talked about, it's time to cover some and watch your risk and all that stuff because, we did wear out. And sure enough, we got a decent correction and we have managed to hold about 39.69. Obviously now this 41.50 level becomes the key level to watch. And you can see, last couple of bars have been under it, below that. So once we can get above 41.50, we can expect this to continue. And below 41.50, I think there's more weakness. And even if we get down to 39.69, I think we're still in pretty good shape. But what do you watch this 41.50 level base daily? That will keep things in the right perspective. Here's the weekly. This is where I'm talking about. It's really kind of coming in this week. So it can be off by a bar. So everything looks good here. Now we're looking for some kind of a correction. 43.41 is the level of the price resistance on the 50% on the square. We have 3 cycles in time. So I think it is a good place for some kind of a consolidation or correction, which would make sense, if stocks are going to go higher, it's possible that gold takes a little bit of a break. Okay, let's move on to silver. Silver basically hit the target last week, 53.60, and we were looking for a correction, and we got it. 46.50 was support right there, and we stalled. Really, we're between this quarter square now, between
Square outs,
46.50. Pardon
those
me?
square outs last week really got a good reaction, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and silver is just working perfectly. When silver is active
Mhm.
and liquid, it trades really well. So 46.50 was the low and 49.10. So obviously, if we can settle above 49.10, just like gold, it can go up and retest. Otherwise, 46.50, we have 44.50. We can go a little bit lower and consolidate a little bit. All right, let's take a quick look at copper. Copper, I added this sort of a resistant level. That's at 518, 517, 518, 518. And between that and 495, I would expect copper to consolidate. And if we can take out the 517, I would expect it to go higher and test up. Next stop would be basic 541 and probably to 550, that area. And 495 is really a big support level, which it held pretty well. So that's copper. Let's jump to the weekly. Here's a silver weekly. We get to copper. Silver weekly, again, we hit the square. Now we're below. Copper weekly, we're above 480. And we kept saying, basis the weekly, we can hold above 480. You know, the copper's in pretty good shape. 535 is the weekly resistance, which now we have a number very close to that on the daily too. So that's an important level. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Last week we talked about how 103 to 47, 250 was support. If you lost 109, and then I talked about this week going up and testing the resistant levels, and which we did. We ran up and checked around this 111, 112 level, even tapped the circle, which I didn't really expect that, but it's nice. Anyway, and then the last couple of days we're below 111, 112, that level, and just retesting it. I don't think it's quite done. It looks like we're gonna consolidate a little bit more, like we do in this zone anyway, like in the past. Maybe a little more consolidation before moving higher. But I would key off of this 109 level, which is really important. And Ben, I know you had 108, so these levels are really
Yeah.
important. And if we can hold this and take, like 111, 112, then I think um, Bitcoin's in pretty good shape. Else, we could expect another shakedown. Come down and shake it all out a little bit, do another maybe a lower low, like we did here compared to that low before we move higher. But that's
You know
my.
what's interesting about
Mhm,
Bitcoin, Barry? If you look at just look at the pattern,
mhm.
it looks a lot more like gold and silver than it does the NASDAQ or the NQs.
Yeah, yeah. It's trades like a commodity, right?
And it's trading like, one of those, precious metals as opposed to like a
Mm.
technology, risk on type asset.
True, true, very true. I wonder
So
why.
it's interesting to see it. I guess it just goes to show you how people perceive it. Because
Yeah,
the
it's
the
in the
pattern is,
psychology. Hmm.
yeah, the pattern is basically a reflection of people's belief in something, right? And how it
Hmm.
acts, and so it's acting more like one of the precious metals. It's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. So those are the key levels to watch for next week. Dollar did okay. We ran up to the 99.50, pulled back, decent pullback. There's some structural support here. So we held above, ran back up again. It's not out of the woods yet, but I think if you take the last 30 days, it's constructive. So, like I said, nothing really big till we get above 99.50. We'll watch that. And if you look at the weekly chart, I added this little zone. You can hold above that, then there's hope for more upside. And we're basically holding above. So we have an inside week again. So watch the high and low of it getting taken out next week. So far, it's looking okay. Everything. Now, if you guys have been following, I don't have to go through the entire setup, but basically we've got the square, the false break, and now we're moving higher. Pretty tight pattern here. So looks good. Let's move on to the euro. Euro 1650 again. We're basically straddling on one side or the other. So now we're back to 1650. We tapped it today. And what can I say for next week? If we're below that, we're probably going to be weaker. If we're above that, probably a little bit stronger. Overall, I think the high is in place. So, trade accordingly.
And that 1650, you've had that number for months.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had this for a while. And it's
Yep.
helped, it's helped really gauge the direction, kind of like a fuse line. And it's been pretty good, especially, in here. See, and it'll continue to be good. So it leaves the area, right? So. All right, natural gas, not much to report. We're still consolidating in here, starting to get a little bit stronger, but we need a little bit more proof. And the Hang Seng, we're back at 26,230 that I've had for months. It's really a matter of, if we can get above and run or not. But the pullback is very good. Had a nice consolidation. So if everything's good, we should be above 26,230, running up towards the highs and maybe even higher. But if we get stuck under, I'm thinking more consolidation of 25,000. That's it, Ben. Got through it even with the cold.
Very good.
All right, thanks. Let's move on to the NASDAQ and the grades and the coffee. Take a look at all of that. We put it back to you. Well, 720, here we come.
It looks that way, doesn't
It
it?
almost looks too easy, but let's go with it.
I mean, the key thing is over the last, 2, 3 weeks, we came down, we tested this half square,
Yeah, that test was good.
and it held. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, you could see how much support there is in there. We had the half square, and we had this, structural support zone. So as long as I would keep saying every day, when I put out the 60-minute chart and the daily on NASDAQ, as long as we're above this area, higher prices are more probable.
Yep,
Now
yep.
it's not like we screamed up there. We've been struggling, but today we broke out. So it looks like the next spot is going to be a test of this 25,720.
I just want to mention the inside bar trade again, like how we had the Thursday's bar versus Friday,
Yeah, no
that was the
question.
clue, right?
Inside, as soon as you took out the high, there you go.
Hmm.
And remember, we're taking this from the October 2023 low
Hmm.
right here. And if you look, this is 360 up. So it's pretty significant right there.
Yep, yep.
And timing wise, 540 would be November 19th.
Wow, okay.
So, I mean, we could get a, 360 by 540 right in there,
Hmm.
uh, going into late November.
Or if
So
it's a melt up, maybe the next square.
they could do that. I'd have to pull it down and we'd be looking up here, at 27,000 and change, you know,
Yep, yeah, yeah.
if it really gets going, which,
Hmm.
it's a possibility, right? You can't rule it out.
No,
For
no, we can't
now,
rule it out.
for now, we're just trying to take it level to level.
Hmm.
This held, so now we're going up and we're going to test this. If we get stuck under here, then we got to say, okay, what are we going to do? Do we hold this again?
Hmm.
And then and more importantly, do we hold this whole area or do we come, slicing through it? But we'll get
Right.
to that next. We know that the most probable things next is a move to that
And that three
25,720.
three drives kind of a pattern is kind of prominent. I mean, the middle one is a little bit off, but man, the three, you can see the September first high and then the cluster. Yeah, two, three. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
if we do
something
the
to
same
watch.
sort of, sloppy high, we could get a nice symmetrical
Hmm.
third one up there.
Yep.
But let's see. So
Hmm.
those are your two key levels. But we know that uh, this is the key one for the coming week because this is where we're in the neighborhood now. Let's check the weekly, see what that tells us. Interestingly enough, on the weekly, we had this outside reversal bar, then we got the inside bar, and then there's your inside rule. Once we took out the high of that, there we go. And this is calling for a high around 27,000. So there's some room to run on a weekly
Now
basis.
that we cleared the 24,000, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
And again, it's that this I can't say how important that is. Look at the
Hmm.
daily, 23.9 to 24.2, weekly, 24,000 essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a really important spot. And again, when we roll over, wherever that comes from, we'll know it based on the technicals. We're going to watch that 24,000 area like a hawk to see, okay, is this just a pullback and we're going to go again, or do we get stuck under it? And then we could say, okay, that's a significant top. So we're looking at those reference points for potential use in the future. Lastly, let's take a look at the monthly. So the monthly bar looks good. We're clearing 24,000. Again, points to 26.7, 26.8. So we need to watch and see next month or the how this month ends, and then if we can print another higher high, that bodes well for the bull run to continue. The one thing I wanted to show you timing wise, from the 2022 low, Barry, to the this month's high is 36 months. So that's three
Wow.
full years right there.
Hmm.
And if we go high to high from the 2021 high to the current month, it's in that Gann death zone of 47.
48, 49.
Yeah. So we could theoretically
Hmm.
we could go out to November, December, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
still be in that death zone.
But
That would be,
that 36 is pretty sweet
yeah, 36 is
for a
good.
leg. Yeah.
So it's again, it's nothing like, oh, okay, the party stopped, jump off. It's just something to take note, put in the back of your mind that there's good monthly timing there. Now we got to see, do key levels hold on the upside and are support levels broken on the downside? Then you could say, okay, this timing is really significant. For now, it's just something to note. Anything else you want to add here on the NQs?
And Qs, no, we're good. I think they're
Okay.
whole combined. You look at all the indices, pretty much the same story across the board. So
Yeah. And here's the we showed this a couple weeks ago. Here's the daily calendar. You can see the breakout here is there as well. And again, it's we
yeah, we held above that.
we were we held above that, right? We pushed a little bit below it, but all week the closes were above it, and now we got a bar clear above it. So again, the push higher should be what odds favor coming up. Just all signs that support held, and now the push is coming to the upside. So watch those levels, and let's see what price action brings next week. All right, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. Barry showed you some very important levels. Now, notice the difference between the NQs, which we just showed you, and now Bitcoin, right? NQs is making new highs, breaking out, and Bitcoin, we still have this high hold. Oh, this is the weekly, by the way. This is the
Yeah, yeah.
weekly. I wanted to show
Hmm.
you the weekly first. Um, that weekly high from 2, 3 weeks ago is still in place.
Hmm.
And now we're down here, battling at support. So far, support is held, right? This 107, 108 area
Yep, yep.
is really key. We've yet to have a weekly close below it. We penetrated it a couple times this week, but it's holding steady. So, maybe the correction is going to be more in time than price. Maybe it's just going to be this half square and we chop around sort of like this
Hmm.
correction we did here. And it was essentially a half square, chopped around, and then took off again.
Yep,
So let's watch and see. This 107, 108 area is the key on a weekly basis. Let's go to the daily. You showed the daily, but I'll show you my daily. Daily shows a similar area, 108 needs to hold.
yep.
You can see why. We spent some time over here, 2, 3 months over here. We spent some time over here, putting in a high 2, 3 months. If we get stuck under here, then it means the correction, it's going to be deeper and bigger. For now, it's holding. So daily, weekly basis, we're watching 109. Let's take a look at the monthly, which is going to print end of next week. Here, it's a little bit higher that we want to see this 111, 112. A close under there would be potentially damaging for longer term because then we could get a full bar under here and that would put the pressure to below 100,000 down to 93. With a week to go, anything can happen. A couple of weeks ago, we were way up here and this looked like a super bullish monthly
Hmm.
bar.
Hmm.
So we don't count our chickens yet until that thing prints. But weekly basis, 111, 112. Daily, I'm sorry, monthly basis, 111, 112. Daily and weekly, it's 107, 108. So not too different, dissimilar from the conclusions that you had.
but definitely consolidating in here, right? Basis the
Ye-
monthly.
Yeah, absolutely. And correcting on the weekly, correcting on the
Hmm.
daily. So what kind of correction? This is what this number will tell us. We can stay above it, it'll be more of a time correction. If we get stuck below, it could be both price and time. So we'll watch it and see. As far as the commodities go, let's talk about the commodities. We saw a pickup in the grains. No surprise, since Trump was talking about getting China to buy more beans. We saw a lot of action in coffee, which I did some posting during the week, but we'll go over that. And those are the three we're going to cover. We're going to cover corn, we're going to cover beans, and we're going to cover coffee. I will mention that cocoa looks to have bottomed. I want to see the pattern develop a little bit more before we highlight it here, but it's showing positive signs like we may have a decent bottom in cocoa after a pretty nasty correction. So let's go to corn, but we want to go to corn daily. So here we have corn. Why am I showing you corn?
Hmm.
We've been highlighting this market for a few weeks now.
Hmm.
We came down. We made a low right on the full square in this 374 area. We did this move up. Now we've pulled back, and all this week we were very small bars, but we were kind of drifting upwards. We still didn't take out this high yet. Next week, it looks like we're poised to push up, take out this high so that we will have a low, a high, a higher low, and then a higher high. So let's watch corn next week uh, with the idea that taking out these highs and pushing will get us up to this, hopefully get us up to this half square where we'll have the next sort of decision point that needs to be made. But it's doing what it needs to do. You can even see like we had a little false break here, Barry, at this low, and then it sort of turned right away. So it's slowly and quietly sort of building a nice little pattern here, showing this may have been a pretty good bottom, but we'll see. Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly shows that we completed the ABCD, sharp move off, got right up to this full square, got on top of it, and we're still sitting on top. This week, we've got a weekly reversal, right? We made a higher high this week. Small bars, but definite bullish
Hmm.
progress, right?
Constructive. Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
very constructive. I was looking to see if we got the weekly reversal, and we did. So and we're breaking this downtrend line. Any kind of strength here, and we should see people pile in and sort of bring momentum to this name. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the monthly. On a monthly, while we did make a lower low this month than last month, look at where we are as we're heading into the last week. We're right near the highs. So this
Hmm.
potentially could give us an outside bar if we can make a higher high, and it would be
Yeah.
the sort of the second higher high monthly bar.
Hmm.
But the key here on the monthly basis is going to be 463. We want to be able to get back on top of that. And you could see how important that was. Remember that whole long consolidation into the big breakout? That was sort of the upper bound of that consolidation. As it was
Right.
we were
Right.
in this half square for what did
Hmm.
7, 8 years almost.
Yep.
I mean, that's how these commodities go, right? They go sideways for a while and then boom, you get these
And
crazy
this is a good
awesome
retest of
moves.
that. This is the classic retest
Yes, it is.
of that breakout. So
Hmm. So bigger picture, that's what we want to see. We would see corn get over this 463. For now, next week, I'd like to see it make a higher high. That price that needs to get over and print over is 31.25, 431.25. So we'll watch that next week and see if we get it. Anything else you want to add on corn here?
no, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Let's move on to soybeans, which was a topic that the president and China were discussing. It's the topic we've been discussing for many months.
Yep.
as we've seen this pattern of lows coming in at a higher level, right? Here, this one was a false break, but then we got to move up and then a higher low. And now looky here, we made a higher high. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the corn chart, right, corn made the push higher low, and we were now next week we're looking to see if we can make a higher high. Well, beans already did it. You can see here the important thing is we got over 1035 full square right here. And
I
look how we
see.
did it,
Yeah.
Barry. We did it in a gap.
Yep. Yep. Gap and a nice follow through.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of times you said you see that, right? At important levels, these commodities will gap or stocks will gap over an important full square, important half square. And we saw that in beans. You can see, it was stuck back here, since September. We've been stuck under here. And we gapped above it. So obviously on any pullbacks, we want to sit on top of this 1035. And if we can get a little more follow through this week and take out these highs, we can break out of this channel. So, if this has all been a big, long consolidation, breaking out of here should give us a big, big momentum push, and that'll push us up to this half square at 1125. So the key thing on the daily is we had the high and we got a higher high to go with the higher low. So that's the daily.
Good. Looks good.
Yeah, let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly basis, no surprise. Look where we closed. Right on this
Right. Yeah.
1060 half
Right on it.
square.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, right 50 cents off of it. So we got an up bar. That's clear. We closed near the highs. That's clear. Now next week we want to see, can we clear 1060? If we clear 1060, that on a weekly basis, that's big.
Yeah. No, this looks good. At least it's good for an ABCD.
Minimally, right? Let's see where that takes us. Almost to the eighth or 5/8 in this case.
That clears the
10
consolidation for sure.
and it clears the consolidation, gets us up to 1095. And remember, these are the patterns that result in big moves. You want to see another one on a weekly basis? Look at this.
Right there. Yeah.
There's your consolidation, and once you break, you go. So this is why we're interested and excited in watching the beans here. And this week's price action is something that, you know, helps us to bolster the bullish case here that we could be on the verge of a breakout. And maybe it's going to be that, Trump gets that deal done and China's going to buy billions and billions of beans and we gap and go. We'll see. When's that meeting supposed to be? The 30th, right? So that would be the end of next week.
Thursday. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, Thursday. So let's keep an eye on that. Obviously, things will leak out and price will reflect that. So if we see a strong push above 1060 next week, don't be surprised if this thing breaks out of the channel on the good news. Let's quickly take a look at the monthly. Monthly, we've been talking about from the standpoint of it's been over a year now that we've been, dancing and staying on top of this important full square at 983. And again, if you just put a little simple lines here, you can see the consolidation that we've been in, right? Breaking out of that's going to give a big move. And here's a previous one.
Yep. Another big one.
Mm-hmm. So the evidence is mounting, and now it's just a matter of, okay, when's it gonna go? When are we gonna see it? So let's watch this really closely in the next few weeks because the opportunities are going to be here. Anything else you want to point out on beans, Barry, that giving people a heads up here?
You did a great job showing the consolidation. I mean, that was the whole thing. We're consolidating really well, and once you break it, we're on with the show. So
Yeah. And I think the other thing about these consolidations that can put you to sleep, even within the consolidation, you get the clues, right? And what are the clues here? Low, higher
mm,
low,
mm,
higher low, false break low, higher low. Right? Those are the sort of clues that alert you to say, hey, pay attention, watch this, look for the bullish breakout. Those are it's a pattern that's coming, and the evidence, while it's still ambiguous because we're still in the consolidation, the evidence is starting to mount that it's going to be a bullish resolution.
Hmm.
So let's watch it and let's see. This week could be pivotal. All right. Lastly, we're going to talk about one we've been talking about for a while, and that's coffee. We were talking about shorting this, and in fact, we did get short um, on where's the move? This one, right? And then this sharp move down, we got short, took some profits, covered risk, and said, okay, now let's see what happens. Well, this week we got an even better setup.
Hmm.
We had a rally,
Crazy false break.
a crazy false break at a full square, and then a reversal.
Hmm.
So this is a better setup than here, obviously. And you and I were talking, Barry. Any kind of pullbacks here would be another. And there's also crazy if you have momentum. If you use RSI, there's crazy divergences on monthly, weekly, daily, 4 hour. There's divergences all over the place at this high.
Hmm.
And you and I were talking real time when this came in, Barry, and I
Yep.
was like, Barry, let's watch. If we close the week the day below 425, it's bullish. I mean,
Yep.
it's bearish. We got
Yep.
that.
Yep.
We got that. Then
Hmm.
we let's flip over to the weekly. We were looking at the weekly again, and we said, okay, if we get a weekly close below 410, that's bearish. Well, we
Hmm.
closed around 400. So we had this big spike up into this weekly half square, 36 time count, high to high, 15 low to high. I mean, everything is sort of lining up here, setting up for a really nice short.
Yep.
And here's your weekly, right? There's your false break. Again, check your momentum here versus your momentum here. It should show divergence. This is a really, really nice setup. Let's look at the monthly. Same sort of picture. On the monthly, I said we want to see a close below 403 before the month's close. We got 400 this week. There's 4 or 5 days left in the month. Let's see if we get that close below 403. There's the false break. So targets 343 monthly. On a daily basis, I think you're looking at initially 384. This is weekly, sorry. 384, then 358. And if it really gets going, we could come down into here, right? Because remember, this is finishing off a pretty big leg, as you can see. So the correction could be substantial. And then on a daily basis, I think minimally we get to 380. And after 380, we're going to be looking at 335 or 290.
Yep.
So again, the classic setup is the false break, right, between these highs with divergences at a full square.
And timing.
And with timing, 182, 106. I mean, there's a lot of timing there. And this half square timing perfectly as well. And I think I also showed you on a 4 hour Gartley that I drew, we had Gartley timing as well right there. So a lot of things lined up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add here on coffee?
Well, I think it looks good. It's worth following the trade. You can look for the counter trends to sell. And that's about it. You got the levels.
Yeah, it's watch the levels. The we have a top in, a good confirmed top there. Now, just as long as we stay below these important levels, it's fire away. And let's see how far it wants to go. Obviously, if it comes down here, finds support at 380, and then turns around and goes back up and makes another high, then that's it's done. The trade's done. But if we continue to get this kind of price action where we made a high, reversed, I mean that's an outside reversal bar, right?
Yep.
And then we
Yep.
follow through today down. Now let's see what happens. Because when these things go, look, you see how they go.
Hmm.
Let me look at the moves off of these highs. They're not small moves. So
Very
very
good. Very
happy
good.
with this one. Let's see how it plays out. And that's all I got. I know
All right. Good job.
we've got thanks. I know we've got the Fed coming up, right? In the next week or two, right? When's the next Fed meeting, Barry?
Man, I don't have it penciled in, but I know it's a couple of weeks.
So we got that coming up. We've got markets breaking out. The key thing in instead of focusing on the headlines and focusing on sort of the noise, just focus on the price levels. Look at the timing that's pointed out. Look at the price levels, and then all the noise sort of fades away. It's funny, and I'll give you a quick example. In coffee today,
Hmm.
I posted an article, a tweet from someone who was saying, "Oh, coffee made new highs today. Everything's great. There's a shortage of coffee in the world. It's going." And this was posted yesterday when it was making these highs. And Zero Hedge had an article, and I reposted. I said, "This is why you don't trade You're going to get wrecked trading Zero Hedge headlines because on that same day." That yesterday that we made the high, we did the outside reversal down and we closed down and we did the false break. And if you're not paying attention to those signals, it looks super bullish, right? It looks like, oh my God, they're saying there's a worldwide shortage of coffee that is never going to be able to be made up. Why would it go down on that day?
Exactly. Exactly.
And so this is why we use the charts. This is why we, use the squares and the price levels because it tells you that the news that was coming out today was already priced in. That's why we were making a new high. It's the news that's coming
Exactly.
next
Hmm.
that the chart is going to start reflecting. And that's what the squares give us the objective measures to say, okay, what's most likely to happen? If we were going to have shortages and if it was a worldwide problem, we probably would have held this full square and stayed on top of 425 and then kept going. But because it turned around and the prices rejected that, something else is coming next. We don't know what it is. And we don't know how long it's going to last, but we know for now that they're saying it's not a catastrophe or it's not going to be global shortages forever of coffee, that something else is going to happen. We'll probably know in a week, a month, 2 months, who knows? That news will come out as to why.
Hmm.
But this is why, Barry always talks about, you look at the charts, you look at the price levels, don't listen to the news.
Yep.
So anyway, I think it's a real time
You
example,
can
and
listen after you're in the trade.
that's right. It's just a reminder as to why we look for the false breaks, why we look at how it acts at a square, because that's the information that's really valuable, not the news that's out that everybody knows. So anyway,
Absolutely.
what are you going to be looking at next week, Barry?
Watching the metals, watching bonds, watching the S&P, and coffee, of course. Those are the main things. S&P is going to be interesting. I think if we get a good trend going and we don't, get some kind of reversal on Monday, Tuesday, and back into some consolidation, I think the upside could be fun to trade.
Yep.
And just like the coffee, if it sets up the rest of the week, it'd be nice.
And beans. I'll keep bugging you about beans.
Yeah,
If we break, if we
beans are almost there. We're
Yeah, if
there.
we break out of that consolidation, then
Yeah.
we could have some fun there too. Well, listen, everybody, have a great weekend. We will talk to you next week.
All right. See you guys next Friday. Bye bye.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.